without a physical body. With a teasing look, Loki replied that there was nothing to be done, because that was what he loved most: deception, trickery, and lies. He said that immorality and cruelty were his greatest talents. From that point on, the game would be his, and they would move forward with everything they had, ready to strike the enemy in an unexpected and merciless way. Meanwhile, the prince and his group were running to escape from two relatively weak monstrous caterpillars on the 30th floor of the royal dungeon. He couldn't understand the reason behind that absurd situation and asked Lenny to cast a spell. The girl tried, but nothing happened. With no other choice, the prince decided to face them with his sword, but was easily knocked down. As he was carried by his companions, he recalled the time when Alec was still part of the group. Back then, they were strong, and the prince began to believe that Alec had cursed him for expelling him. That was the only explanation for why they were struggling so much against such weak enemies. Later, the prince sought out the mage Vaughn to have himself examined. However, the mage stated that he wasn't under any curse. The prince refused to believe it and kept insisting that Alec had cursed him, saying there was no other explanation for so much difficulty on such a low floor. Vaughn then explained that the 30th floor was a place where magic was nullified and commented that he found it strange that the prince didn't know that, since Alec should have told him. Outraged, the prince asked why he needed to mention that useless man. Vaughn calmly replied that Alec had conquered the 68th floor and had been a member of a legendary group of students. The prince let out a sarcastic laugh, saying that it was nothing more than a rumor created by commoners, and promised that he would make Alec pay for what he had done. At that moment, someone knocked on the door, saying that the king wished to speak with the prince regarding Alec. Upon arriving at the royal hall, the king asked if his son had ever heard of Elda's Mikola. The prince replied that he hadn't and wanted to know who that person was. The king said that Elda's was a noble whom he himself had expelled. That man had said that the current state of the court needed to change, or Galdana would end up facing an irreversible crisis. To the king, at that time, it was nothing but an insolent noble speaking nonsense. Even after being expelled and losing his name and noble title, Elda's entered the Magic Institute as a commoner. There, he silenced everyone with his talent, becoming the best among the graduates and later the royal court mage. He appeared before the king once again, repeating the same words as before, but ended up being dismissed from his position a year later. Despite that, the king admitted that he had often been remembering Eldaz's words and asked if his son understood the true reason he had ordered him to conquer the dungeon. The prince answered that it was to gain experience, but the king corrected him. He said he wanted to confirm if Eldaz had been right, if it was truly time to change the kingdom. He then revealed that he intended to reform the promotion system, allowing anyone talented, even a commoner, to reach important positions. The prince was shaken by that, saying that depending on commoners was a disgrace to royalty, something his father himself had taught him. The king agreed that he had raised him that way, but said he would now follow Eldaz's advice. The prince tried to make him change his mind, claiming that his current situation was Alec's fault. At that moment, someone entered the hall bringing a torn document, the strategy for the 30th floor, written by Alec during the night. The king looked at the contents and said it was impossible to create something so detailed based on only 1 or 2 visits to the place. It was a meticulous record that made traversing that floor much easier. Feeling unwell, the prince asked to be excused. The king asked Vaughn to look after him. In the corridor, the prince wondered why Alec had never shown him those notes. He began to realize that Alec wasn't the useless person he had thought, and that it was himself who had been incompetent. Determined, he asked Vaughn for a favor. The scene then shifts to the dungeon west of Fiesel. Loki warned that Alec should only use magic when he gave the signal. Yorha asked if he wanted to make it seem like Alec was just a swordsman, and Loki confirmed. Kraja found the strategy interesting but questioned whether it made sense to use psychological tactics against a monster. Loki explained that the creature they would face possessed intelligence and extremely refined sword skills. He said he didn't want to give orders, only that Alec should fight with the sword until the right moment, when they would unleash a powerful spell to defeat the enemy. Alec accepted the plan. Then Loki asked for Kraja's help, saying that finding the boss's chamber was difficult and that they would need to use teleportation magic. Yorha covered his ears as soon as he heard that, and Kreja reminded him that teleportation was a classified spell of the kingdom. Loki, however, said that he had managed to learn it and that everything would be fine as long as no one said anything. He also joked that they were all accomplices now for taking part in using the spell, while Loki drew the magic circle and explained the technique's workings to Kreja. Alec asked Yorha how far they could trust him. Yorha replied that he didn't trust him completely, but believed he deserved a vote of confidence since 2 years earlier Loki had led a high-level raid in the Arcana dungeon and none of his companions had died. Alec was impressed by that feat, knowing how dangerous such a raid could be. Since Yorha had decided to trust him, Alec chose to do the same. He stood up and called Ornest, proposing a bet like they used to make 4 years ago. They would fight with swords, and the loser would face a punishment. Ornest accepted the challenge. Soon after, the group activated the teleportation spell and was taken directly to the floor boss. The members of Rechroma were already exhausted from battle when Ornest appeared, striking the monster, followed by a surprise attack from Alec. Even so, the creature managed to dodge. Alec and Ornest began fighting side by side until Ornest pinned the enemy's cloak to the ground. Taking advantage of the opening, Alec delivered a direct blow to the creature's head. When they thought they had won, the monster rose. It was a Dullahan, an undead knight who appears mounted on a horse. Ornest noted that the monster they had defeated earlier was merely its steed. Suddenly, the Dullahan vanished and reappeared above them, attacking Alec. The boy realized that not only had the enemy become faster, but its strikes had also grown much stronger. Yorha cast a support spell on Ornest, who combined his strikes with Alec's and managed to hurl the monster away. This time, the Dullahan stood up, placed its helmet back on, and let out a deafening roar that struck Alec and his companions. In the blink of an eye, it lunged at Alec. Even though he managed to block the attack, the boy was thrown backward, but Yorha quickly raised a magical barrier, softening the impact against the wall. Alec asks Loki how much longer they need to hold out against that creature. Loki tells them to hang on for at least 5 more minutes. Alec then drinks a potion and switches places with Ornest, allowing his friend to drink one as well. After that, the two return to battle, fighting side by side. During the fight, Ornest comments that after so many years, upon finally meeting Alec again, he was surprised to see his friend with a sad expression, the same one still on his face at that moment. Then, he asks what happened to make him like that. Alec decides to open up and confesses that he only wanted to fulfill a promise, to repay a favor and change the royal court. However, he admits that he failed to do so. Ornest listens and says that even if he wasn't able to change everything, Alec's desire had always been genuine. After all, he endured 4 years in that place where commoners were despised, and that, for Ornest, was already something worthy of respect. His friend's words touch Alec deeply, and he can't hold back his tears. At that moment, Loki finishes the preparations, and a huge magic circle appears in the sky. The Dullahan notices it and, enraged, changes targets, rushing toward Loki. However, the mage had only created an illusion to trick the enemy, luring it exactly where he wanted. The creature steps on a magic trap, and one of its legs is frozen. Even so, it keeps moving forward, but each step triggers another of Loki's traps. Amid the chaos, Ornest accidentally activates one of the traps set up for him, being teleported to the monster's back. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he delivers a precise strike. Loki is impressed to realize that Kreja had improved the teleportation spell so quickly that she was able to adapt it as a combat trap. Meanwhile, Mavel leaps in to deliver a powerful attack. As planned, the Dullahan dodges to the right and ends up activating another of Loki's traps. Furious, the monster climbs the wall toward the mage. Loki tries to draw its attention, but the Dullahan ignores the illusion and goes straight for his real body, hidden by magic. Still, this was already part of the plan. By stepping on another magic circle, the Dullahan creates the perfect condition for Yorha to activate her sealing spell. Even while chained, the monster manages to strike Loki, sending him flying off the wall. As he falls, injured, Loki smiles and says that the rest is now up to Alec, who was already waiting for the right moment to act. And so we end the 4th episode of the anime. The banished court magician aims to become the strongest. If you want to see the continuation of the next episodes, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with the upcoming videos. See you next time.